What does it mean when musicians talk about being in a key? To answer that, let me start by talking about scales. A scale is a collection of notes spanning one octave. Scales can contain any number of notes, but the most common ones found in Western music consist of 7 unique notes. If I start from C and play all the white keys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I've played every letter name exactly once, and that brings me back to C. What I just played was a C major scale. I like to think of scales like families of notes. Each member of the family has its own personality, and they all interact with each other in different ways. Some may be more likely to clash, while others are better at resolving conflict. The note the scale is named after is like the family's home. This is called the tonic. So in C major, C is the tonic, and C is the note that feels most like home. It's not a rule, but pieces often start and end on the tonic. If I start and stop on C, it feels like we've come back home. If I stop sooner, though, most people whose ears are used to Western music would probably agree it doesn't sound quite resolved. That's better. When I say I'm in the key of C major, the short version of what I mean is that C is the tonic, and most, if not all, of the other notes I'm using are likely to be notes found in the C major scale. Like other types of families, scales can also have extended family. Different keys, like C major or G major, are said to be closely or distantly related to one another, and the circle of fifths is essentially the family tree that shows how they're all related. Looking at the whole thing, it's easy to get overwhelmed, so let's just start with a small chunk. In the middle, we've got C major with no sharps or flats. If we go one notch clockwise, we get to G major with one sharp. F sharp. One notch counterclockwise, we've got F major with one flat. B flat. We could say that G major and F major are the two keys most closely related to C major. On the piano, G is exactly a fifth above C, and F is a fifth below. So, each notch around the circle represents moving up or down a fifth on the piano. And I say that G major is closely related to C major because 6 of the 7 notes are the same, with only the F sharp replacing F. Same for F major, with B flat replacing B. But the big question is, why F sharp and why B flat? Are the sharps and flats arbitrary? Fortunately, no. There is a pattern to it, and if you understand that pattern, you won't have to memorize all the key signatures through brute force. To explain it, let's start by looking at the C major scale again. When I move from any key to a key right next to it on the piano, I call that moving by step. All the notes in the scale move by step, but not all the steps are the same. Some of the white keys have black keys in between, and some don't. If I have to skip a black key, that's called a whole step. So C to D is a whole step because I skipped this black key. And D to E is also a whole step. But when I go from E to F, there is no black key in between, so I call that a half step. Every major scale contains both whole steps and half steps, and they always appear in the same order. If we complete the C major scale, we can figure out what that order is. From C, we go whole step, half step, whole, half. 2 whole steps, then a half step, then 3 more whole steps, and 1 more half step. The fact that we're ending with a half step is important. In every major scale, the note a half step below the tonic is called the leading tone. In C major, B is the leading tone because it leads back to the tonic. If I play all the notes from C to B, I feel a strong, almost gravitational pull back to the tonic. Going back to our little corner of the circle of fifths, hopefully it makes sense now why G major has an F sharp in it. That F sharp is the leading tone in G major because it's a half step below G. If I start from G and play whole step, half step, whole, half, I come up with all white keys except one, F sharp, in place of F. So G major follows the same pattern of whole steps and half steps as C major did. If we want to keep moving around the circle of fifths, we just keep following the same pattern. To review, we started from C major with no sharps or flats. When we moved one notch clockwise around the circle, we got G major. G is the fifth note of the C major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the G major scale is identical to the C major scale, but with the new leading tone, F sharp, substituted for F natural. To move one more notch around the circle, we need to start by figuring out what the fifth note of the G major scale is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That brings me to D. So D major comes next. The D major scale is closely related to G major, so they also have 6 out of 7 notes in common, including the F sharp. But now we need to add the new leading tone, C sharp, which is a half step lower than D. So the D major scale has both an F sharp and a C sharp. Starting from D, whole step, half step, whole, half. By the way, this works the other way around too. Since the new sharp is always the leading tone, a quick way to figure out which key we're in from the key signature is to look at the last sharp and then go up by a half step. In G major, F sharp is the only sharp, and therefore the last sharp, and G is up a half step from there. In D major, C sharp is added last, and D is up a half step from there. Let's do one more. To figure out the next notch, we start from D and count up to the fifth note of that scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's an A, so A major comes next. We keep the F sharp and the C sharp from D major, but now we've got to add the new leading tone, which is G sharp. So here's an A major scale. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, back to A. The rest of the sharp keys work the same way. The fifth note of A major was E, so E major comes next and adds a fourth sharp, D sharp. The fifth note of E major is B, so B major has 5 sharps and A sharp is the newest addition. At this point, we're already using all the black keys, so what comes next? Well, let's see what happens if we try to move one more notch around the circle. If we start from B and play the first 5 notes of a scale that uses all the black keys, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, F sharp. So F sharp major is the key with 6 sharps. And the new sharp that we add still has to be the leading tone, which is E sharp. This might look like an F, but we can't call it that because we've already got an F sharp, and we can't write a key signature where F is both sharp and natural at the same time. So we call it E sharp instead. The final sharp key is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, C sharp major, which adds a B sharp and has all 7 sharps. This should make sense because C major had 0 sharps. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And if we take every single note in a C major scale and bump it up a half step, we should still get a scale that follows the same pattern of whole steps and half steps. C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B sharp, back to C sharp. Boom. But wait, did I just say that's the last sharp key? Isn't this supposed to be a circle? We're barely over halfway back to where we started. What about all the other keys? Well, theoretically, we could write every key using only sharps. But we're already up to 7 sharps, which means that the next key would have to have 8 sharps, and there aren't even 8 unique letters in the musical alphabet. So what would that even look like? Let's find out. If we start from C sharp and count up to the 5th note of the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we get G sharp. So based on our pattern, G sharp major should have 8 sharps. But all the notes are already sharp, so what would we even add? Well, again, we'd add the leading tone. A half step down from G sharp is not F, not even F sharp, but F double sharp. Ugh, even I don't want to read a piece with double sharps in the key signature. Wouldn't it be nice if there were an easier way to write this scale? Fortunately, there is. What if instead of calling it G sharp, we call it A flat? If we start from A flat and follow the same pattern of whole steps and half steps, we get A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E flat, F, G, back to A flat. Instead of 8 sharps, we end up with only 4 flats. Much better. But how did we get here? Let's rewind for a bit and go almost back to the beginning. D major. What if, instead of clockwise, we wanted to move one step counterclockwise from here? Well, we already know D major has 2 sharps, and G major has only 1. So when we move counterclockwise, instead of adding 1 sharp, we're taking away 1 sharp. To get the G major scale, we take away the C sharp. Starting from G, 1, 2, 3, and when we get to the 4th note of the scale, we take away the C sharp and play C instead. To get back to C major, we do the same thing. We start with the notes of a G major scale and then take away the F sharp. 1, 2, 3, and the 4th note is F instead of F sharp. So we're always taking the sharp away when we get to the 4th note of the scale. Once we run out of sharps to take away, we start adding flats instead. Starting from F, we can play 1, 2, 3, and on the 4th note, instead of B, we play B flat. So F major has a key signature of 1 flat. And if we go one more notch counterclockwise, we should get a key with 2 flats in it. But what key is this? Let's start from the beginning one more time. Each time we moved clockwise around the circle, we went up by a 5th. From C up a 5th to G, from G up a 5th to D, and from D up to A. If we turn around and go the other way, now we're moving down by 5th. A down to D, D down to G, G down to C, and finally C down to F. So we just need to figure out what's a 5th below F. You might think it would be B, but we can tell from the key signature that whatever this key is, it has to have a B flat in it. And the key can't contain both B flat and B, so it turns out that down a 5th from F is actually B flat, not B. I'm planning another video on intervals soon, so if it doesn't make sense yet why it's B flat instead of B, I'll talk about it more in that video. So this is the key signature for B flat major. If we start from B flat and count 1, 2, 3, the 4th note of that scale is going to be our new flat, which is E flat. To move one more notch around the circle, we start from B flat and go down another 5th to that flat we just added, E flat. So E flat major is going to have 3 flats in the key signature. If we start from E flat and play 1, 2, 3, the 4th note is our new flat, A flat. Here, another pattern emerges. It turns out that for all major keys containing at least 2 flats, the second to last flat in the key signature is the tonic. B flat major had 2 flats, B flat and E flat. B flat is second to last, and that's the tonic. E flat major has 3 flats, B flat, E flat, and A flat. E flat is second to last, so that's the tonic. And if we go one more notch, we finally complete the circle and get back to where we were before. A flat major. The new flat is D flat because 1, 2, 3, 4, that's the fourth note of the scale. And if we keep writing the flats in the same order, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, we find that A flat is second to last, and that's the tonic. We could keep adding flats to come up with a few more key signatures. With 5 flats, D flat major adds 1, 2, 3, 4, G flat. G flat major adds 1, 2, 3, 4, C flat. And finally, C flat major adds 1, 2, 3, 4, F flat for a total of 7 flats. Just like C sharp major had 7 sharps, C flat major has 7 flats. These last 3 overlap with the last 3 sharp keys we talked about. D flat and C sharp are played the same way on the piano, so these scales contain all the same notes, just spelled differently as sharps or flats. The same goes for G flat and F sharp, and C flat and B. I know this is a lot of information, and I also know that I moved pretty quickly through those last few keys in particular. If you're trying to learn the circle of fifths and you're feeling overwhelmed, I would recommend starting with these 5 keys at the top. All the patterns are already there. If you get really comfortable understanding the patterns as they relate to these keys, you can use those patterns to derive all the other key signatures. Like anything else, this takes practice, but the results are worth it.